guys, welcome to Clockwork and Noodles, and hello and welcome to a new season. This is my first breakdown on the show. Very happy. The show has kicked off in a very good manner. It bodes well because this was a season which I was worrying would be a bit dry, under the radar, a bit mid. This show has my full attention. This was the only show at one point that I really wanted to break down. This show has everything I missed. Once upon a time, I used to break down Moriarty the Patriot. The channel blew up, high point for the show. Since then, we've not really had anything in the same vein. It's a mixture of Sherlock Holmes' darker aspects. It's got a bit of a Vanitas feel to it, and it's also got Black Butler. Quickly want to talk about Black Butler. Congratulations, I am a big Black Butler fan. I cosplayed Doll from the Book of Circus arc. After 9 years of waiting, season 4 has been announced. I might break Black Butler down on the channel because it's unique enough for the channel to get away with covering it, because we can't really cover mainstream stuff because the big channels just wipe me out. Black Butler has died away. I don't think people remember it as much. Let me know in the comments below if you are watching anime back in the days of Black Butler. I am Clockwork and Noodles, Becca, the weirdo who lives in the noodle bowl. We break down anime on a weekly basis. If you are finding me for the first time, do consider giving me that subscribe because it really helps us. We are on our way now to hopefully try and hit 800 by the end of the year. Very excited to break this show down because I've picked up a lot. I have 3 pages. If a show script goes over 2 pages, Becca was interested. I will be giving you the OP breakdown, the ED breakdown on this one as well because there's so much going on. Pounced on this one very, very quickly. Initially, I came out hyped. I was so excited by the episode I just seen. Currently, on Mal, it's only a 7. It's literally slap bang on a 7. At one point it was a 6. Not the greatest response. Hopefully you guys are here willing to be a bit more open and listen to my breakdown because there's a lot going on that you probably won't pick up on the first run through. There's probably a chance I may need to watch a couple of these twice, which is concerning as these take long enough as it is to edit. Quite quickly, the show is dealing with the idea of westernization. Normally I am 50-50 when it comes to narration, even if it is just writing on a screen. I get it. You're trying to very quickly introduce the setting. I do wonder if it's a bit of a metaphor in a sense. Suguru, our main MC, killing supernatural beings. If you'll see in Japan culture, it's very centered around a lot of supernatural stuff, which is why I love the culture. I think it's fascinating. Coming in with the westernization, it feels very Western, the idea of watching a cage fight in my eyes. The low-key message here is that westernization killed off maybe some of the loss of tradition, maybe some of that spiritualism. And that's just my take. It probably isn't the case, but it just felt very clever the way that you've got him coming in to wipe out supernatural when Japanese culture is always based. A lot of the original traditional stuff is very supernatural. Absolutely love the shot where he's waving the bottle around and very quickly we catch Shizuku. Very briefly, you can see her in the bottle. It's so clever. It's so quick. I had to go back twice to try catching it. It's what I'm hoping this show is going to make the use of because it's so dark. The palette is dark. It's very saturated. The colours only come right at the end when they finally met their agreement together. Dark setting, which means the show has perfect chance to play with darkness, build a few things in there, have maybe something be there, but it isn't there. I just have high hopes for the show doing stuff like this, but that could also just be me really wanting horror. But I don't know if this is going to be delivering on the horror aspects as much as I thought it initially would. Let's talk about the OP and how amazing it is. And yes, it's a K-pop band. It did take me a little quick Google to have a little look, and the song is Crack, Crack, Crackle, which I think is just a really nice wordplay. Initially, I was like, oh, I don't think the theme fits, but it actually does. It started to grow on me halfway through when I was writing notes. When I write notes, I have to flip back a few times just to check a few things, and it's really nice because you can see the MC Suguru walking from the Edo period to Western Japan or Europe. Notice that the backdrop where the Edo Japan bit was is now hooked up on movie production backgrounds. It's all on backdrops. I did have to keep reminding myself that the word farce means fake. Isn't what it seems at the end of the day. I want to keep that in mind because it is a word in the title that I think is very important. I have a theory right at the end. I think it's too early to be having theories, but if I do get it right in the first episode, people have got to come back to this video when the whole show is over and just be like, yeah, I did it. Well done me. The colour sequence initially in the OP reminds me of Moriarty the Patriot entirely. Colour popping, you've got the reds coming out. A colour pop is where you saturate all the other colours out and only red really lasts. On purpose to make it stand out because it's often the colour of blood or it's really bold. Love the use of circles, camera angles in the show. Lots of angles seem very curved, whether they're doing that on purpose or not. Maybe it's because her perspective in the cage is curved as well, because it's forcing that curved perspective, which is very clever if that is the case. I really like it. It's a very stylized piece as well, where you've got the characters, their heads, and the cities growing out the backs. Back when I did a bit of film noir work, we tried to get a city out of my hair as well, because I've got quite a lot of hair. Kind of worked. This really looks quite nice. I love the sepia tones. Does age the drama a little bit. Creepy but nice offbeat K-pop voice going on, which I think is really cool. But it is very, very Black Butler styled at points, which I think is really awesome. Let's talk about the stained glass moment. Also curved. Note there's curving. This could be wide angle lens effect going on, because sometimes when you get a wide angle lens, your straight lines start to do a bit of curvature. Again, it's the Black Butler theme really going on here with those stained glass effects. Also to the right, Phantom of the Opera. That is the Phantom of the Opera wearing the mask. This is why I have really high interest in this show, because I am a huge Phantom of the Opera fan. Sherlock Holmes is in this, Moriarty as well, Mycroft is in this. It's Watson. I think Watson's in this. This is a show that literally has all the elements that I need, and I really want this show to be good. I will cry if this show ends up not being quite what it seems. Hopefully that 7 I saw earlier is going to vanish and turn into something else. Colour popping, again, I think is just really, really clever. Definitely reminds me of the Moriarty the Patriot, especially when you've got this character here. The sky is red, everything's quite dark. That's exactly what they were doing in that show. If you were to suddenly say, oh yeah, that is the Moriarty the Patriot, people, no, I completely get that. From what I can see, because I am keeping an eye on this score here, done by a studio called Le Pan Track, which is not the same studio at all. It's JC staff with Moriarty the Patriot, doing a good job. The minimal palette as well. I think it's giving us playroom, and I think they're using it very, very nicely, so I really hope that they also use this to their advantage. Into the real world again, we're going to have a saturated palette. Everything apart from the red really stands out, and I like this because the saturated palette really makes you feel like the environment is devoid of life. You can see people are struggling, which is the effects of westernization upon the people. Very nice if that is the core theme. Political, but it's also not in your face. The Dutch angles, this plot is just twisty all over, so having Dutch angles really, really works. Suguru having that tortured past, immediately me shouting Moriarty. So happy that that is actually where we're going, because it puts him central to the plot. And of course, the mirroring continues. A lot of mirroring is used in this show, where he runs down the line on his face, the memory runs up the line on the face, which is very, very clever. Hopefully at points, I think in the fight later, they use it. As long as you're using it properly and it's not just there for show, I like it. And they definitely use it later to make it part of the enhancement for that fight. The Tormentor definitely seems to be Moriarty, not the Patriot, maybe in this one. Don't think he's the Patriot this time round, but it is a habit because I used to introduce the Patriot bit. Mastermind at the end of this one, which I think is going to be amazing, because all of our characters do feel really intelligent on a certain degree. Now, the MC, Suguru, I'm gonna get used to this now. Suguru does a bit of Rakugo reading, monologuing. He walks away from the ring, he's killed yet another supernatural being, monologue a little bit, which I think is actually really clever, because that could be hinting at what's maybe going on if it does do a rug pull later on. Rakugo broken it down on a channel once. There was a show on a channel we've broken down. I don't know a great deal of it. I don't claim to be knowledgeable. I just know it's this style of talking, the way that they discuss things. And so even if it isn't what he's doing, it sounds reminiscent, because it also feels very Sherlock Holmes. The main character is intelligent. He's talking to himself because it helps him get his thoughts in track. At one point I was like, oh, is this Sherlock Holmes? Because I didn't know who was who in the plot just yet, but I knew Sherlock was in it. The music now actually aids what's going on screen, as we've got Suguru leaving, Shizuku entering. As the music is on repeat, it's looping over and over again, because it feels like the music is stuck, because something is about to happen, where we go straight into an amazing fight. I wasn't expecting the fight to be good for some reason. I just felt it's going to be a mystery. They're not going to put too much into the fight. The fight is really clever and intellectual, because we use mirroring again. We watch the fight from the reflection upside down. A lot of silence. Nobody's yelling their name. Nobody's yelling powerful moves or anything. They're silent. They are focused on each other. They look evenly balanced at one point, and then you can see that really nice moment where he starts to jump and fight back, which I think is really nice. And the interjection halfway through with the Rakugo theatre style announcing with the snake lady. It's mirroring, because there's her and a snake. There's two people facing each other, which is kind of what's going on. And that clang as he slams his foot into the blade. Love it. I love my soundboard. I do love my audio. We are introduced, I'm going to call her Aya. Aya sounds nice, so I'm going to call her Aya. The first moment when she starts to talk, I knew it was the head in the cage. I knew it wasn't Shizuku because I knew the rug pull moment where the head's in the cage. Most of you guys do because it was in the trailer anyway and it's in the poster. Entertain a bit of banter. The stakes start to build as we start to learn Suguru's life is possibly at an end soon. We learn a bit more about what it means to be an Oni and the fact that the only part of him is going to consume him. Reminiscent of Kimono Jihen when we broke that down on the channel. That was awesome, by the way. If you haven't seen those breakdowns, go check those out. Or at least check out Kimono Jihen. I love Aya's personality. She's very sassy, very sarcastic. I think it also bounces nicely off the over-dramatic, the headliner that is Suguru. He performs all of his lines. Him on a stage would be very entertaining. Every single line he delivers is very nicely done. I will have to go through the voice actors very quickly at the end. We start to get a bit of our lowdown, what's going on the plot. The head is 947 years of age. I don't trust the anime community as it is. The fact that she's appearing as a 14-year-old, nobody think anything right now. I love how sassy she is. I also really like the blinking effect. So when it's her perspective, there's a lot of change of perspectives used in this first episode. You get the very nice moment of her blinking and then in the bars so that she looks at him through the bars and you're like, oh, who's actually in the cage right now, which I think is very, very clever. But eventually she says that his half Oni side is going to kill him. The reason why I am immortal is because I was beheaded by an Oni. It does make me wonder, Moriarty is working with an Oni and also means that Moriarty is immortal because he was there supposedly in that sequence where we see her beheaded. There's something a bit more supernatural going on as well. It is also fitting because the UK folklore kind of stuff, we do have a lot of supernatural elements too. People believe in fairies. If you go to the right place in the country, people will tell you that there's fairies or gnomes living in their gardens. It's not as prominent nowadays, I promise, but it is still part of the culture. It's quite interesting that she wants to die, but she's offering to extend his life. One is trying to extend their life, the other one wants to end the life. The more they discuss, the more they start realizing that actually we're the same, which I think is very, very clever. They're both part Oni. The only reason that you're giving up, similar to him, is because you don't see a way out. And now that a way out has presented itself, you can use it. Come back round and we find out that the characters are very close to being the same. Weird theory, even though I know it's very early to be having a theory. Now, if I get it right, guys, I don't know the show at all. It's just a hunch. So I'm looking at it going, actually, it's probably wrong. Wouldn't it be weird if the cure to it would be putting him in a cage, making him an immortal head? That's him living for eternity and the circle goes round and round. But I don't think that's going to be the case. But that was my fun thought because it feels like the kind of show that could do something like that as an ending, a bittersweet ending, because I'm not expecting a happy ending of a show like this because it's very melancholic in general. It's got that vibe to it. Same with Black Butler. I don't expect that to end very well. The show's too dark. It's not going to allow for a very overly happy ending. It just wouldn't fit. More similarities that both of them were tortured by Moriarty. I thought that was a very nice link and we've already solidified him as the main villain, the main antagonist at the centre of this story. I like the switches occasionally where you see her looking from behind the veil. We do get some very nice moments where we get some very unique perspective shots, having them all at once. I do think at some point it's going to do a rug pull. I don't know why. I think we're going to get a rug pull based on some of these aspects. Screens coming in, seeing parts of the faces. There's a lot of cutting and chopping going on, which I think is very important. I think it's going to be cool to see if that grows into anything or if they use that to their advantage, which would be good. Was glad that they did translate his name, Suguru Shinushi, a headliner. She calls him more like an opening act. What we saw, I think it was My Master Has No Tell a few seasons back, that all centres on the Rakugo Theatre. Start as an opener and then you eventually debut. You do years and years of being an opener till you're an act, gain your own following, and then you become a headliner. She does take a nice blow at him by saying, actually, you're more like opening act. I don't think you're good enough to be a main act just yet. I think he's actually very entertaining. I love the fact as well that he starts to perform his plan, his death. This is what was going to happen in my head. This is how I'm going to go out. The way he performs, the way he circles, more circles yet again. Very clever perspective going on. The fact that we get to see him from behind the bars, I think is really nice. If you are going to die, you may as well have fun with it, which I think is a very nice perspective on life. You know it's inevitable, you know it's going to happen. Have fun. It's because he couldn't see another way out. I'm accepting my fate, use of what I have at this point. Opportunity has come along, I'm going to take it. It is wordy. I can see why some people may not like the show because it's very wordy. Now the switch to the colour was very jarring, but a very clever moment where we have it coming in the background as they're walking and then they're in this festival setting, which I think is really nice because they start to strike an accord. They start to realise actually we're not so different. There's colour, there's hope again. The environment becomes quite lively. He doesn't doesn't want to kill her because, again, as he says, you're like me. If you suddenly have a way out, if you could have your body, you would take it. I think it's a nice moment. I think it's nice to introduce the colour at this point because I was worried that the anime would be saturated the whole time, but I don't think it will be saturated. I think there'll be moments where we flip between the two because the show's very mirroring in the sense where it would do that. It was nice to hear Shizuku talking. Half of me expected her to be a mute, but actually, I did say, well, you might hear her talk a bit later on. She just talks when she needs to. She's a character who doesn't have many words. There's a nice balance between the two who are constantly talking to one another. I love the fact that they kind of agreed that we're both going in the same direction. The guy that you need to get your body back from is Moriarty. They don't know the name yet at the point, but they say M. You're going in that direction. I need to go in that direction. Why don't we team up along the way? Really like it. Obviously, that sets the ball in motion. That sets the anime in motion. This is where we're going to go now. We're going to go to Europe, which is going to be fun because that gives me Vanitas vibes as well. You can see Shizuku also getting a little bit of a twitch of irritation when we know it's going in the kiss direction because she's like, the way to actually prolong your life and slow the Oni effect is actually by exchanging, because obviously she was killed by an Oni. Immortal effect, so the immortal will then balance out the Oni kind of eating him effect. Kiss is foreshadowed in the OP, so it doesn't come out of nowhere. She's upside down, he's there, and it looks like they're going in for a kiss anyway, so I did think it. It's very clever, and again, I expect no less at this point because it all seems to be tied up. Everything seems to be very relevant, which makes me think I've missed something. I will probably have to watch it again once the whole anime's done. Let's quickly talk about Moriarty the Patriot ending. Pretty much the same ending. It almost looks like the same animation flow as well, where you start with Big Ben and then you go into the houses. Everything is black and white, very nice kind of passageways. You know you're going to probably end up in London for the final showdown with Moriarty. His hometown, I believe, is Cambridge. He spent a lot of time tutoring in Cambridge. He lives somewhere further up north. Cambridge was where he mainly studied. That's actually very close to me. I'm not going to dox myself. Cambridge is close to me. Compared to Oxford or Cambridge, I'm a Cambridge girl. Mirroring and the flip. The camera flips one to another, which feels like a circle motion. I think we end as well in the British Museum at one point where you see all the bones, which would be very nice to see if we end up going there. And then coming full circle to Japan, ending on a empty cage. Wondering if that's foreshadowing or if this is where it all began. You never know with a show like this. It could just be them ending where it all begins and the whole circle starts over again. I am going to quickly break down Suguru's voice actor. I feel like I don't give enough credit to the voice actors who do a lot of work and do actually make these shows. Our main boy, Suguru, is voiced by Yashiro Taku. He's been in some shows that I kind of recognise. Gugu, so if you're getting those Fushi vibes, because again, they mentioned the word immortal about a few billion times, he is Gugu, and I love Gugu. Gugu was a fantastic character. You guys also really like Gugu as well. I would love to know if he has any experience within Rakugo. Does kind of sound like that's what he's doing. As soon as I wanted to tell you guys more, Mal has crashed. I can't give you that update on the score. I will probably give you the update next week anyway. It's always worrying when you see Mal crash. We've had quite a few hacks on Mal lately. The only reason I mainly use it is because it's the best place for me to record all the animes that I watch, and I can also see what I thought about them. I think this show is very interesting. I think it's off to a very good start. I can see people not liking it because of how wordy it is. It is very out there. It's very unique. I do think in the right hands, a few people could find this one very enjoyable. Very excited to be breaking it down with you guys. So I'm glad that I selected this show. Stuff like this can always dunk the ending. Hopefully we end strong. That would be my main concern. There are, of course, in true Gothic style, 13 episodes in this one, so can't wait to break those down with you. Hopefully you guys also found the first episode interesting. You're gonna have to let me know your thoughts down below. Are you a Black Butler fan? Let me know in the comments if you're as excited as me to finally have season 4. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.